Okay, we're going to the greatest signing ever made by this very supporters club, made by me in Kansas in 2010 during a cup of coffee, and he's still in the building. We're having you, Andy, on board. Nice to see you here.
What a signing, eh, mate? I
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
Kansas 2010 pre-season tour. Back to the days when Manchester United were reaching 3 Champions League finals in 4 years. That was the only year that they didn't.
Uh, and they also went to a Paul McCartney concert there, I remember.
Me?
No, not you, but the squad.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure it was good, but he's a Scouser, so I obviously wasn't there.
You weren't. But, Andy, what can you say about the statues and the mood at Manchester United after reaching top four and winning a trophy?
It's positive. I had a chat with Erik ten Hag after the game on Saturday, and he described it as fantastic. I wouldn't go that strong. I think it was a good season. I think that I would have accepted top four on a trophy at the start of the season. I think Ten Hag has really impressed me. He's had big calls to make, especially the one with Cristiano Ronaldo. He's got them all right. He needs to be backed and to continue to strengthen and do the job that I think he's absolutely capable of doing. There were a couple of wobbles where I thought, if United don't get in the top four, remember feeling pretty down after the defeat to Newcastle, then I would say it's a failure. But he did do. So it's a pass mark. I'm still annoyed about the defeat to Seville, if I'm honest, especially because I was asked by quite an important group of people, would you cover a European tournament for us this year? We're going to offer you the Champions League, access all areas, do what you want. And I said, is there any chance I can do the Europa League instead? And they said, you're a bit crazy. No, I just prefer to do the Europa League. It looks more intriguing to me, a completely neutral journalist, to do the Europa League this year. Okay, you do the Europa League. So I was there in Budapest last week, and Manchester United were not.
But Jose was.
I walked in the press conference after the game. Jose Mourinho was there, and he got there early. I didn't hear a journalist ask a question for 15 minutes. He was just completely unloading in Italian. And I can't speak Italian, but you know when you can get the gist of what somebody's saying? And I thought, nah, I don't like the look of this. And 10 minutes after, he went down to the car park and had a real go at the referee, who's much bigger than Jose Mourinho, by the way. And Anthony Taylor's from Wythenshawe, one of the toughest part of Manchester. He would not be scared of Jose Mourinho in the slightest. Yeah, Roma did what Roma do, and Seville did what they do, and won the Europa League again. If Manchester United get drawn against Sevilla next year in any European competition, I'm just going to petition for that game to be postponed.
But talking
Can't
about
see a way past them.
Yeah, but talking about manager's mood, you've talked a bit before with Erik ten Hag being a bit frustrated. How difficult is it to be the manager of Manchester United at the moment with all the question marks around the takeover?
I think it's always difficult because you have millions of people who think they know more than you do and advise you what to do. And I remember a surgeon saying to me years ago, it would be like someone coming into my operating theatre who knows nothing about medicals and saying, just hold on there a second. You might want to just go a bit, go to the left there with that knife. But football does this to people. We all have our opinions. It's what makes it great. We all think we know best. And Erik ten Hag has got to rise above all of that, and do what he thinks best. So a year ago, nobody was mentioning Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez, Anthony, Christian Eriksen. Nobody. There are all these names that Man United fans fancied. It's exactly the same now. But the point of your question is, he needs to be backed. He's been told he'll be backed, but you've got the spectre of the takeover in the background. So the Glazers are saying business as usual, but it's not business as usual because we don't know who's going to own Manchester United in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months' time.
But is there any money there?
It's a really good question because people just assume, oh, it's the summer, we're going to spend 150 million. I was told in January that United had warnings from about FFP, along with several other clubs. You spent too much money. The debts have been well publicised. And I remember writing in January, United need money. And this is one of the reasons the Glazers have gone to market. This model they've got is no longer sustainable. Of course, it helps getting into the Champions League. Ticket sales are stronger than they've ever been, ever. And I think there is money, but I think United have to sell. And I'm talking about players like Scott McTominay, maybe Harry Maguire, players who are going to get you tens of millions, because world-class number nines do not come cheaply. I think it was a bit of a shock to some United fans. Yeah, we're Man United, we spend 200 million a year. I mean, he spent 200 million last summer. It's a huge amount. And that is why in January, United couldn't spend any fees on another striker. And people were saying, he needed to be backed in January. Well, of course, I get that, but come on. United spent 200 million last summer. That's a huge amount of money. It was more than anyone. Apart from Chelsea, of course, but they're a joke.
But regarding the takeover, is there any news? Is there any movement?
Depends who you ask. There was a good piece in the Financial Times on Saturday, which was well sourced. You have the two main parties have signed non-disclosure agreements. So they're not allowed to talk officially, but of course they can inform journalists. Both parties have got PR firms based in London working for them, and they have to be true to the NDA. If they're not, as I understand it, the Glazers have been annoyed that the Qatar side have been briefing too negatively against them. Thomas Ziliakis, he really annoyed them because he came out heavily criticizing them. I mean, come on, Glazers, you're going to get criticized for what you've done. So I think it will happen sooner rather than later, but I could have said that at 2 or 3 points in the last 2 or 3 months. And my understanding is, well, I know for a fact that Ineos are confident. If you ask Manchester United fans, they're completely divided on this. It depends who you ask. So on the Scandinavian Supporters Club, for example, behind a paywall, or the Athletic behind a paywall, United We Stand behind a paywall, all in favour of Jim Ratcliffe. If I do a post on Twitter now, it would be heavily Qatar. So it depends which group of fans you ask. And among the match-going support, really hard one to answer. In the past, you've been able to say everyone's against the Glazers taking over. You can't really say that now. People are genuinely divided on what they want next.
But finally, Andy, if Erik ten Hag, if the money's there, in a perfect world, what does he want?
Well, the Mason Mount stuff is true, and I've written a piece for the Scandinavian Supporters Club about this. This depends on Chelsea now. So my understanding is the player wants to join United. Personal terms are not an issue at all. Chelsea are not in the habit of selling their best players to their main rivals, so that's a complication. A slight similarity with Frenkie de Jong last year. Fees agreed between the clubs, but the player didn't want to leave. So you need all these parts to get the deal done. United's absolute priority is a number 9. Everybody knows that. Ten Hag told me that in December. It was clear to see after Cristiano went. But who are the world-class number 9s? Do Norway have any? Are there any Norwegians who are good up front?
Not really. None.
No, I didn't. Odegaard, he's the most high-profile Norwegian player, isn't
Definitely.
It? The Danish lad at Atalanta. Frankfurt, number 9. These are the type of players who Manchester United are looking at. But they're going to command huge fees. So it's going to be a tricky summer for Manchester United. There is money there. What happened last summer? I spoke to the people doing the negotiating. Some of them have changed for this year. Around this time last year, and I said, what's happening? Because Twitter was going crazy. Why are we not signing people? And he said, Andy, this is like a nightclub opening and it's 9 o'clock at night and we've got until 2 o'clock in the morning. We're not rushing into anything. So I sort of got that. But then come the end, did United rush into Anthony and pay more than they needed to? Yeah. It's difficult because everyone knows or thinks Man United have got money, but actually United need to control their own finances. If a new owner comes in, that solves the the immediate money issue with the debt, but United still have to be mindful of financial fair play.
Very good, Andy. Just finally, Harry Kane, not going to happen.
I don't think you can say not going to happen. I think people would love it to happen. I know Real Madrid have come on his radar the last couple of days. Getting players out of Tottenham is very, very difficult with Daniel Levy. I think Harry Kane would have to push strongly for that. But even when he tried to do that with Man City a couple of years ago, Levy just said, I'm not selling you. And the idea of paying, 100 million for someone of his age, that's tricky as well, because United isn't the youngest squad. When you look at the midfielders behind him, Casemiro, Christian Eriksen, Fred, these aren't guys who are 21 anymore, which is another reason Mason Mount is so attractive. All power to Ten Hag. He needs to get more out of the players he's got. Jadon Sancho needs to give more. We need to solve the issue with Mason Greenwood, maybe even Anthony, and Anthony Martial as well. Good when he plays, but he never plays. There's issues all over the pitch. I think the defense is the most stable side of the club at the moment. And I've written a huge piece for the next Scandinavian Supporters Club magazine about David De Gea, with lots of good inside information about that as well. Interesting times as ever in the soap opera that is Manchester United.
Perfect, Andy. Thank you very much. Good to see you again and see you around, hopefully in Oslo in July.